It's 6:31 on June 20th, and I'm calling Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 to order. We do have a quorum here. So, citizens' comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the board on any matter, whether or not it is posted on the agenda. The board is not permitted to take action on or discuss any presentation made to the board at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. The board will hear presentations on specific agenda items prior to the board addressing those items. You may speak up to 3 minutes or the time limit determined by the president or presiding officer. Do we have any citizens' comments? No. Okay, moving on. Consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the board of directors and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Agenda 1, consider and take action to approve the consent agenda. A, May 2017 check register. B, May 16th, 2016 regular meeting minutes
2017.
amended.
2017.
2017, excuse me. Year behind. Regular meeting minutes amended as we have on the handout here on the dais. And C, interlocal agreement with Denton County for tax collection fiscal year 2018. Does anyone wish to remove any of these? I'd like to remove C, since we have to designate a person, and we can't do that on a consent agenda. So we're looking at, I'll make a motion to approve A and B of the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by myself, a second by Vice President Wilson. All in favor, show of hands. Okay, unanimous. All opposed, just for the record, none? Okay. Okay, C, interlocal agreement with Denton County for tax collection in fiscal year 2018. From the, and correct me if I'm wrong, Renee, do we have to designate a person for this?
I don't think so. This is just for them to do our collect our taxes.
Yes,
Is
we
there-
do.
do-
It's always
okay.
been Renee in the
And
past.
we have a yes
Okay.
or a no?
Yes,
We have to designate a person.
yes,
Okay. You in agreement?
Who's been it?
yes.
Steven, you're the tiebreaker.
I agree.
Okay. So,
He didn't say with who, though.
okay. So, Renee, I mean, it's not a secret, but you're still planning on retiring in December, correct?
Yes, sir. I sure am.
Okay.
I'm
So-
planning. It might not happen, but right now it's definite in my mind.
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the interlocal agreement with Denton County for tax collection fiscal year 2018 and designate Stephen as the key person.
I have the tiebreaker.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, I made the motion. Director Thomas had the second. Any discussion? All in favor, show of hands. All opposed, none. Unanimous, passes. Okay, regular session. We'll move into regular session. Number 2, update regarding incompatibility of Office of Director Greg Wilson as they relate to another office. Hopefully this is the last time we see this. Tony, do you have any comment on this?
I do.
Can you pull your mic
At
down,
the
please?
last, board meeting, the board asked me to review this matter and then to bring back a recommendation whether or not I would recommend the board seek an Attorney General opinion regarding the potential incompatibility of office. After researching the matter, my recommendation is not that the Board of Directors not do so. I think the legal authority, in order for there to be incompatible offices, there has to be 2 incompatible public offices, and there's some legal authority which makes pretty clear that an officer of a 4B corporation is not a public officer for purposes of that doctrine. So I would recommend that the board not seek an Attorney General opinion.
Okay, anyone have any comments or discussion on that? Okay, we're gonna move on. 3, consider and take appropriate action concerning requests for reduction of calculated winter average volumes. Rose and Wilson.
Okay, I'll take lead on this. I've had a few people contact me concerning their winter averaging amounts. Done some research on each one of those. I've got 2, 4, 5, and then a confidential account that we'll need to do in a closed session. I think overall, I've talked with some other utility billing offices around in the area. They generally have a policy for handling this type of an issue. Some of them are rather broad. I think that may be something that we want to look at in the future. But right now, I'd just like to take care of these, and I can say that I have no one else has contacted me about it. This is all that I have on the plate. So I think the easy way to do this is just take these one at a time.
Okay, before we do any motions or anything, we do have a current policy in the rate order, I believe, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and out of these, did they all follow the policy or come through the policy?
A did not, and I'm not sure about F.
Which ones did then?
551 Indian Creek, 2 Meadowbrook Lane, 1 Turnberry Court, and 1 Cypress Court.
Okay. I mean, personally, we have a policy in place, and, you know, they're there for reasons, and I'd like for them to go through the proper policy, because Shane can resolve them at his level. Isn't that what the policy's for?
No.
That's not what the policy's
Well,
for?
that's what the policy's for,
Okay.
but in these particular instances, what has occurred is they had issues but came to light after the closing date for reporting, the March 15th cutoff date. Now, I did correspond with the general manager about this particular issue, about these that come in late, and said I'd be more than happy to go to the board if he required more, more latitude in the operation, that I'd come back to the board and see if we couldn't get a more general policy to allow some additional latitude for these particular instances, that might occur. And the response was, we didn't get a response. I mean, so one of them I was working at the time could have been with the last packet, the last one that we considered, and so it wasn't included with that. And so I think that we owe these folks good customer service and consideration of their situations.
Okay, again, my question is, did all of these people approach the general manager to get the issue resolved? Or did they come to you?
I know some of them, one of them I specifically asked to contact the general manager. He called and left a message and never got a call back.
I did not receive any messages. I've responded to everybody on here. Let's see, the 551 Indian Creek, I believe. I have some handouts here also. I received a copy of a check that was written to a plumber that was in May, and no other follow-up with that. You have, that is in your packet. Some of these I asked, the majority of these I asked for additional information, but here again, our rate order, which I am going by, these were turned in later than March 15th, so I was not able to grant them relief.
I mean,
If I may,
go ahead.
it sounds like the real issue, concern, or whatever you want to say is, there is a policy. Our rate order gives a date. I think what we have to decide is whether or not that date is reasonable. Personally, I do not, and I understand that this may be the last ones that are in the that you have. I don't want to spend every meeting going through 7 or 8 of these. To me, this is not the forum to deal with these. They really need to be addressed at the staff level. So I think there needs to be a realistic position, or if the position we have, if we determine that's realistic, then we need to go with that. But every meeting having 7 or 8 of these to talk about is not a good use of the board's time.
And that's what I'm conveying is that, I mean, I don't mind addressing the ones that have gone through the proper channel, whether it be before or after the date. You still should review them, gather the facts, and judge them as they are. But the ones that didn't go through the proper procedure, bring it up to our staff first, so they can actually research it, as in, have they been sent tags, and they just neglected, that, hey, you have a leak, or when was the plumbing or leak or whatever they had, repaired. But I'm all for what you just said. I don't want to see, last month there was 1, now we're up to 6. I mean, it could be 10 next month and so on. Where are you going to draw the line? I'd prefer that we have a process in place, a procedure, and we're supposed to follow procedures, so, why wouldn't the people that haven't gone through the procedure go through Shane, see if he can't resolve it, and then if it doesn't get resolved to their satisfaction, then they can come to the board.
I would like to respond to that.
Go ahead.
The point would be that the ability of the general manager to respond is capped on March 15th. That's it. If you have an issue, discover that issue after, or fail, in a short time frame, fail to get it back in, you're just out of luck. You get no consideration. The general manager's point is, I have no flexibility to go beyond that point.
Well,
My research is that I believe that there should be additional flexibility. I'm prepared to bring back at a meeting that is not so packed, consideration of a policy for some changes which would allow the general manager flexibility. But I see no reason that these people should be penalized in the interim.
Does the policy, and I'm trying to find it here, does the policy require a review by the general manager before it comes to the board?
It is attached
I
on
think
the
it has to be,
pages of the accounts, the last page is the
You have a
right
copy
order.
of the policy?
yeah.
What is this?
That's,
It's-
that's,
Is this,
and the highlighted,
Anywhere is it?
you have one more? Okay, so, yeah, I can read it. You read the highlighted section.
Yeah. Everyone has one.
Yeah. Another thing, I don't know, I mean, you came to the past MUD meeting, what, 18, 19 times or something? I lost count after a while. How many times did you come, talking about winter averaging and how it would work?
14.
Okay, say 13 at least, right?
More than
Okay,
12.
more than, okay. So, and then on Facebook and other avenues, the MUD sent notices out to people saying, winter averaging. We passed the rate in, I think, September, showing what the winter average would be in April. We changed the rates a little bit, but winter average was gonna start April 1st, correct? Then when it started, we sent out a notice saying, okay, you have till this date to, dispute it. And then there's still people that are coming up with, oh, I had this or that. Did they not know what the rates would be, or?
Where does the point say that they can come to the board? Where's that listed?
It says writing to the general manager.
Well, no, I read that part, but that doesn't address coming to the board.
No.
two of the emails that I received, the 551 Indian Creek, and I believe it was 2 Meadowbrook Lane, just asked that the board review these, so I forwarded those on to the board for their review.
Well, what I was trying to figure out is if there's a requirement that says it has to go through the general manager before it comes to the board. Because if it doesn't, then maybe that's a policy cleanup, and we really can't penalize them for not going through him.
It appears to me your policy addresses request to the general manager during a certain time frame, and what's happened now is if there's been a
It's-
request by customers outside
Outside
that
the
time frame,
timeframe.
and so your policy is silent on that issue, and so it's up to the board of directors to decide whether to consider those
Hey,
requests.
Kevin,
Yes.
we got a lot of stuff to do tonight. I think Bill's on a pretty good point. This is our first time at this. And, you shut off on February 28th, and you say the cutoff date is, what was it, March 15th?
March 15th.
That's 2 weeks. I mean, we probably need to sit back and say, and look a little bit more at what other communities are doing and maybe give something a little more flexible. But in the interest of time tonight, let's go ahead and look at these
Yeah.
5 things and see if
Get
they're
to
worth
where-
it.
'cause
And we
the
can wear,
policy-
we can
yeah.
wear this thing out, we can put it on the agenda for next meeting and come up with a plan.
Yeah, because the policy doesn't say they have to
Right.
go through the general
And
manager.
it's 5
so-
of them, and if they've got
Yeah.
valid reasons, let's look at it.
Okay, go ahead,
right.
Mr. Rose.
Go.
Start at 2859.
Okay, on page 36. If you go to that page in the packet, we can march through these. On page 36, 2859 Earl Drive, they had a leak in an irrigation master valve. Actually, it was short, it was downstream of the main water meter, but before the irrigation master valve. There's a picture of that on down their location, and the discussion. I've taken a look at the consumption history, and I would move to set the winter average for 2859 Earl Drive at 3,333 gallons retroactive to April the 1st, 2017, and have any credit applied to the bill. And that's based on looking here again at the 2-year average. I'm looking at what the water use was in December, January, and February, as well as coming over and looking at April there on, basically it's running 3,000 with a 4,000 gallon kick. And so that's how I came up with the gallons for a retroactive.
Bill, can I ask you-
Their current winter average is 6,000 gallons, so this one's a small move down.
I think you're on the right path, but let me ask you a quick question. I just want to make sure, they talked about the fact that that leak was immediately fixed. Did they provide any documentation to us to show that that was an expense associated with fixing a leak?
Let's see.
I mean, you know, you can
In,
kind of.
in this particular
It says they
one,
tighten the valve
in this
control.
particular one, it was only a matter of tightening the valve to stop the leak.
Well, it looks like the leak happened between January and February with the high usage spike.
Well, kind of the month of February, Kevin.
But
Started in January.
Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, February on this chart is actually January numbers?
February on that chart would be from
The re-
120 to 220, so mostly February, the end of January into February.
What meter read, when it says February 17 here, what's the meter read? The
The
January 21st?
dates on there, if you look at the billing, well, okay, so the 20th, we would have read, yeah, I think that's when the meter was read, would be the 20th,
In February,
The 20th.
okay.
around the 20th.
Because that would be the March bill then.
Yes.
Yes? So is it March
Let me-
reading or February reading?
Let me pull up my
I
calendar.
have a handout here that shows the usage.
For what period of time?
From 3/16 to current.
Okay, so in,
Yep.
in February, the usage was 9,000. That was from the meter read in February.
So if you look at the reading date, if you go over and you're looking at if everybody looks at the reading date, it looks like we read meters January 27th, and then again, February 24th. The reading date on there is when the meter was actually read.
So you use 9,000 from January to February 24th. So, and you came up with 3,300?
3,000, I did, after the lesson from the last month, I averaged, I looked at 3 months across and averaged it at, I looked at a 3,000, a 3,000, and a 4,000.
Okay,
And-
because, right, I'm looking at 5, 4, and 9, if you bring 9 down to 4,500. But where's the 33? You said 3,300 average.
I used, I'd have to go back and pull the other chart, but I used, I believe it's April is 3, and you've got a prior April from 2016 that is 3, and I used, Well, actually, the April 17, which is outside the period, shows that they're using the 3,000 as a realistic number. But then I went back to the prior year, prior winter averaging block, if you were doing it back then, and looked at the 3, 4, 3, 3, and 4, averaged those and said 33.
Well, April is the only one below 4,000 besides last year.
Well, you can
Throw
look,
out the high, which if you delete the 9,000, if you just average the 4 and 5, it should be 4,500.
you know, however you want to agree on this.
Okay,
First of all,
I'll
I have
make a
a,
motion.
I have a motion and no second.
Set their average at 4,500. Do I have a second? What I did was drop the 9, which is the erroneous, probably where the leak started, and averaged the 4 and the 5. So they used 5 in November, they used 7 in October. Let's see, January they used 4, and then it went 9, and then back to 5 again.
Kevin, if you're gonna try to do a comparison, you don't use October.
What are you comparing it with?
I'm looking at their December, January, February of last year versus their December, January, February of this year. Those are the 3 months we use for winter averaging.
Okay, if you go May of
You-
this year,
If you throw the 9 out, which is February, they've used 4 in January. In December, they used 4,500. So the average of those, if you throw in the other one out, then the average between those is 4,250.
I'm going with recent months. You're going a year back. If you go to a year back, look what they did in May of 16,
I'm just trying to use the 3 months of winter averaging, not anything else,
and that's December,
December.
January,
and February.
February. So what are you coming up with?
Well, you've got 5,000 in December, you have 4,000 in January, and then you got this spike you said you want to throw out of 9,000 in February. If you throw the 9,000 out, you've got 4,000 and 5,000. The difference between that is 4,250. That's what I think we ought to set it at. Look at the
How do you
graph.
come up with,
I mean, in the sake of
Excuse me,
time.
I'm sorry, 4,500. Excuse me, 4,500.
thank you very much.
I was about to say, for the sake of time, I don't think it matters, 4250 or
It
45.
doesn't.
Let me,
I have a motion on table to do it at 4,500. That's the average of the 2 months. Do I have a second? Jim?
I didn't get a second.
Yeah.
I would
I'll
like
second
to
your
make a
motion.
motion.
You second?
I'll second your motion.
Okay. Have a second by Director Rhodes. Now discussion. You do?
About this first specific case,
Yes.
I don't want to consider them case by this board, so I have a different motion when it gets, so I have no comment on this one. I'm not for doing it by the board.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, we're gonna vote on the motion. All in favor, show of hands. Okay, Director Thomas, Director Wilson, myself, and Director Rose for, all opposed?
Yeah, opposed.
Director Hayes opposes, so 2859, the winter averaging will be 4,500
Okay, now I'd like to make a motion.
going forward.
I'd like to make a motion that the sentence in the rate order that says all requests for sewer average reductions must be submitted no later than March 15th or as determined by the general manager. In other words, giving the flexibility to go beyond March 14th if he thinks the circumstances so warrant. I don't think it's a proper function of this board to go over these things one by one. That's a function of the general manager.
Okay,
Point
and
of order.
As far as the motion, you're off track there because the motion is only dealing with the sewer, the winter average. You can request an agenda at the next meeting to revise this rate order.
Okay, well, record me no on every one of them.
Okay. Did you get that, Lori? Put something on the next agenda? Okay. Next one, Mr. Rose?
Okay, the next one is on page 40, 551 Indian Creek. In this particular instance, the problem was a pool leak. They repaired the leak, and the current winter average is 11,333 gallons. We don't have really, as you look back across the history, on page 40, you really don't have anything that you could look at and get a good, as you look back in the time frame, get a good winter average. The pool leak's been a continuing issue. They have it fixed. So now I'm looking at the time frame of March, April, and May of 17, and I moved to set the winter average for 551 Indian Creek at 2,333 gallons retroactive to April the 1st, 2017, and have any credit applied to the bill.
Help me understand how you came up with that number. When I
Okay.
look at this, I see,
I got to have a second to discuss it.
well, can we,
Yeah.
I don't want to get
We don't
tied down
need-
that we,
Okay. Just,
let's get all the information out.
okay, there's no second? Okay, no second, so the motion fails. Now you can talk, do whatever you want.
Okay, come up with the rationale before this. I don't want to play this Robert's rule where we're constantly going back, I need a second, I need a third, I need a fifth. Get all the information out, then let's have a motion, and then we debate and go.
Go. Ask your
What's-
questions.
Well, where did 2,200 come from? When I look at this, I see unless I'm looking at the wrong one.
No, you're looking at the right one. He took the last,
That's it. That's
3
right.
months,
I took the last 3 months on the graph.
He
even though,
discounted last year because the leak apparently
Apparently
was
was
there
that.
last year. And
Okay.
but going back to Director Thomas, as he was comparing it to last year where, I mean, did this person get a red card saying they had a pool leak?
Yes.
Bill, did they furnish you with any documentation about getting the pool fixed?
Blue cards.
It's about the,
They had one for December 2016 only.
okay, there was documentation. If you look at page 41 in your packet, okay, there was a copy of a check. When I put this in for the packet, I was having problems with all the photocopies and stuff like that, and so I pulled them off. There is a check that I removed for $1,050 for pool repair.
And I could not get that to print out either, so.
Yeah.
I would say this, as it relates to the blue cards, I have firsthand experience. I had a leak for a year. I got blue card after blue card after blue card. I had plumbers and lawn people and all those people come out, and they didn't find the leak. I think it's a great service that the MUD offers by sending out the blue cards, but I can tell you as a person who received the blue card and called out someone forever and a day where they couldn't find the leak, eventually a plumber found the leak, and I made my builder refund it back to me. We shouldn't put too much credit in they were notified, because just because you get notified saying there's a leak, somebody still has to find the leak.
Yeah.
And that's not always an easy task.
I had that same
Well,
problem. I had that exact same problem.
It's just notifying people that their meter hasn't stopped in 24 hours.
No, I completely agree with you, but what I'm saying is that sometimes comments are made, well, we sent them a notice, so they should have figured it out. What I'm saying is that I got notice after notice after notice, and I had plumbers and others come out, and I couldn't find the leak. So we shouldn't just assume, or the assumption should not be made, just because you get notification that a leak is found, that people are automatically going to figure it out, because sometimes you can't figure it out.
But there's still a leak.
Well, I agree, it's still a leak.
Okay.
Kevin, we weren't in winter averaging last year, but I had the same problem. Took 3 months to find it. We found it. Took 3 months to find it.
But the point, go ahead. I'm not even gonna,
Okay.
okay.
So
So
you
what-
want to make somebody want to make a motion? I was looking at the wrong one, so I looked at it before. So,
So what do you think on this one?
I mean, it looks like from March through May, it's been 2,000, 3,000, and 2,000. If you took that, that's 5, 8,
7.
that's like 7. Yeah, it's like 2, 3 or something like that. Like Bill was right.
That would-
Bill was right. Broke clock's right twice.
Bill, make your motion
Make your
again.
motion again.
I move to set the winter average for 551 Indian Creek at 2,333 gallons retroactive to April 1st, 2017, and have any credit applied to the bill.
Second.
And what, you said in apply credit?
Any credit applied to the bill. That was the same thing that we did. That particular verbiage was basically what we did last month, was to have the credit applied to the bill, have any credit applied to the bill.
When did we get this request?
This request,
Was it before the last billing cycle?
I got, the first one I show, well, and here again, because I captured the critical items to go in the packet. I may have more emails, and it would take me time to go on the computer and pull up the emails to determine exactly when. The
Let me
one
ask a question to the staff, I apologize. How much hassle is it to go back and issue credits and do that? Is it an easy process or is it difficult to do?
If it's a short period of time, it's not real time consuming.
Okay,
And this email's dated May 19th.
We were notified on May 9th.
okay,
Kevin, you have a motion
that
and a
was my
second?
question.
So do you have a second?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
second.
he seconded.
A motion by Director Rose, a second by Director Thomas, and it was
33,
33.
2003,
Okay.
$2,333.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Okay, Director Rose, Vice President Wilson, Director Thomas, for, all opposed? Myself and Mr. Hayes opposed. It passes.
I'm opposed to all of them because I don't think this is a proper function for the board. This is a function for the general manager.
Duly noted. Okay, next one, Mr. Rose.
I'm on page 43, 2 Meadowbrook Lane. They had a ruptured, frozen irrigation line, and this line is, and they repaired it. My understanding on the way this line is you have they have a line off the meter for irrigation system, and then it goes to a backflow valve, and then it goes to a shut-off valve for the irrigation system. And what happened is that the line at the backflow valve froze and ruptured, flooded a garage and a bedroom, but that's beside the point.
Well, when did it flood the garage?
Uh,
In other
that-
words, when did it rupture?
Let's see, in January. They had a leak, it says, Mr. Davis, Wayne Board Directors review his account, they had a leak back in January.
And this is the one you were saying they just had a plumber repair, or plumber check, Shane?
Kevin, could I make a comment?
Sure.
With respect to Director Hayes's point, it would not be appropriate since our agenda doesn't provide for amendment of the policy, but if the board was interested, it could adopt a motion delegating to the general manager the authority to review and adjust these bills. So, you know, it's appropriate that it's before you today because of what your policy limitations, but now that it's before you, rather than go through each one, if you wanted to have a motion to authorize your general manager to review and adjust bills in his discretion, that's perfectly appropriate. It'd be limited to these which are before you. And then next month, you could obviously consider an adjustment.
Are we
to your
still
policy.
under a motion before the board at the moment?
There's no motion.
Okay, I want to make a motion that we give the general manager the discretion to review requested changes in the winter rate, winter average, and make adjustments as he sees fit.
With respect to the four remaining
Four remaining,
requests.
one, 2
With the
Meadowbrook.
four remaining ones on the agenda, yes.
They are 2 Meadowbrook Lane, 1 Turnberry Court, 1 Cypress Court, and a confidential one. Is that correct, Mr. O?
Yes.
Okay.
May I ask a question?
Second, I'll second the
before you-
motion.
Before you second, may I ask a
I
question?
already seconded it. Now you can ask.
Jim, in favor of all of this, but as long as appropriate documentation is presented. One was a receipt from a plumber, he could have come out and put a toilet in the house. I mean, I want the documentation to show that money was spent to fix the actual problems associated, not that, you know,
That
Well,
should
and-
be
and-
left
and-
to the
and
general
some-
manager.
and that's-
He's fully capable of requesting whatever information he needs, so I don't think we need to make a big, long motion.
Well, in some cases, you actually don't have any documentation. For example, the first one that we considered, where the actual fix was to go out and tighten the valve down. That was, that had been discovered and was leaking. There was no cost. It was homeowner action, and that significantly reduced his water, the water consumption he had
But-
going on.
but on
So I mean,
He went to
it's easy-
significant efforts to show you pictures of what he did, which gives me an indication that it
Yeah,
was really there.
but you may not have, my point is, you may not have documentation. other
The
than
general
to
manager
hear-
needs it, he can ask for it.
Okay, any other discussion on Director Hayes' motion? Okay, we'll vote for it. All in favor of Director Hayes' motion? Okay, Director Hayes, Director Thomas, Vice President Wilson, myself, and Director Rose. You got the direction, Shane?
I do.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Hayes and Tony. Thank you very much. Okay. We can move on to,
Item 4.
yep, gotta cross them off. So, here, let me do a little cleanup real quick.
If I could, on that last motion, I'd like to be informed of the action taken on each one of these.
We'll keep the board.
Yeah.
informed. Yeah, correct. Okay. Item 4, consider and take appropriate action regarding district legal services. A, accept resignation of Liston Law Firm. PC as district general counsel. B, consider and take appropriate action regarding engagement of new general counsel in consideration of responses to district requests for proposals. And C, approve engagement of Dubois, Bryant, and Campbell LLP as construction and litigation counsel, counsel in connection with the district's contract with Weber Cadagua Partners for construction of wastewater treatment plant improvements. Any discussion or any motions?
Do we need to make a motion on accepting resignation of Liston?
I would do so just to document for
Okay.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we accept the resignation of Liston Law Firm PC as district general counsel.
I'll second. Any discussion? I see none. All in favor, show of hands. All unanimous, all opposed, none. Passes, we accepted the resignation. Okay, next one.
The next one is, we sent out a request for proposals to, I believe, 7 different firms. We received one proposal back. I had sent those out to the board for review, and currently would like to, if there's an action, or if you would like to possibly move forward with setting up an interview with this firm.
Anyone?
I'd like to ask a question. Tony, did your firm have any interest? I was just curious. You didn't respond to the RFP. I was just curious.
My firm is currently engaged by the district and under contract, and I'm happy to serve in role as your counsel at the board's pleasure for as long as you desire. So the request for proposal to review the qualifications and experience of each firm, I believe the firm previously, the district previously reviewed my experience and qualifications before it engaged me, so it didn't seem to make as much sense with respect to a firm that's already under contract to the district. But I'm happy to serve the district in whatever role or capacity the board would desire.
Our previous rates for attorneys were a certain amount. What are your rates per hour?
My standard hourly rate is $300 per hour.
That's what we were paying before.
Is that dependent on the type of work you're doing, or is it a flat rate of 300 all the time?
For my services, that's my standard rate. From time to time, that's negotiable. For my legal assistant and her time, it's significantly less.
And the only
Tony,
reason why I asked that question
is that
just
appropriate?
Excuse me?
Is that appropriate during this conversation on
Oh,
rates?
I have no concerns about being,
Yeah, it's
in my opinion, my rates are significantly below most of my peers and competitors, so I'm perfectly happy to discuss them in public.
Presence isn't required every meeting. You can Skype in or something, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, the only reason why I asked that is because previously we paid one rate for general legal matters, and we paid a different rate if litigation was involved. So that was the purpose of that question, to see if there was anything that would kick the rate up.
Yeah. And with some clients, I have kind of arrangements pursuant to which, for instance, we may pay a flat monthly fee, which includes all attendance at board meetings and routine matters. And then for specialized matters, that's billed on an hourly basis. And so it's more common to do it on an hourly basis, but in some cases, we try to figure out an arrangement which is mutually beneficial, and I'm happy to discuss that if the board wants to consider that.
Is your contract open-ended, or did it have a termination date?
It's open-ended and can be terminated by the board at any time.
Okay. I would like to make a motion, because of his deep experience with this mud board, that we continue to operate with, what's your law firm's name?
McLean and Howard.
McLean and Howard Law Firm, under the current contract, with a terminate at board's discretion.
Yeah, I mean, that contract's into place, so I appreciate that. I don't think the motion is necessary unless you'd like to secure kind of board concurrence to that, but my firm's engaged to the district at this time.
Okay, well, I want to make the motion anyway, that we continue with that contract.
Okay, I'll second it, just since he made the motion, even though I agree with Tony. We're on the contract, so it's not gonna change. It's just a confirmation of the contract, I guess. Is that correct, Tony?
That's my interpretation.
Okay. Any discussion?
I appreciate Tony's, Council Corbett's expertise. I've sat across the table from you, and I appreciate your work. Having said that, to me, there's a drawback, and the drawback is distance. And so, based on the distance, that causes me significant concern, and I think that the board might be better served if we were to contract with a local establishment, continuing our services with you, or our relationship with you, because certainly when it comes to doing work in Austin and your expertise down there, it's a definite positive, something that I don't want to step away from.
Sure.
So
That doesn't offend me at all.
Okay.
So, no, I appreciate that.
I just hate to see a guy put a lot of miles on his car and hours on his body.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, call for a vote. All in favor of the motion, show of hands. I got Director Hayes, Director Thomas, Vice President Wilson, myself, 4, all opposed. Director Rose is opposed, motion passes. Confirmation of Tony's McLean, and what was the last name? Howard? Howard, yeah, okay. We're still at C, approve engagement at Dubois Bryant. Any discussion on that?
So Tony, if I could have you kind of explain C a little bit more.
Sure. Since the date of the board's last meeting, and I'm going to intentionally not provide any legal advice and opinion in open session, so before I say what I'm about to say, I want the board to be aware of that, and I will recommend that we go into executive session later. But since the date of the board's last meeting, the contractor has submitted a claim for alleged delay damages. There's also a number of legal issues associated with the contractor's performance. Construction litigation is a very specialized area of the law, and my advice to the board would be that it retain construction litigation counsel. The law firm Du Bois, Bryan and Campbell is a firm based out of Austin, which has some significant construction litigation expertise, Matthew Sullivan in particular. We have consulted with him since the last meeting as a result of the claims that arose. By engaging litigation counsel, they will also be able to participate and advise the board in executive session and we'll be able to establish the attorney-client relationship and confidentiality. In connection with the contractor's claim, there will be a necessity for legal services. One of the items on your agenda later is for the board to consider approval of arbitration proceedings, and that will be the forum for addressing each party's claim against the other. So again, I would recommend that the board retain Construction Litigation Counsel to represent its interest in connection with the contractor's performance.
What are their rates?
They have a rate schedule, and they're, in terms of my rates, they're significantly more than my rates. It depends on the partner there, but I believe there's an engagement letter in the packet, isn't there?
I didn't see it if there is.
Okay. Let me see if I can answer that correctly.
Matthew's rates were $425, and then above him was $450.
And I'll be the first to tell you this matter will not be inexpensive.
Is this likely to be the type of situation where if one party succeeds over the other party, that the legal costs of the losing party have to be paid by the losing party?
Okay, before you,
I'd rather
Yeah.
address that question in
Yeah.
executive session.
before you
if I may.
say that, I'm gonna make a motion that we take 4C to executive session.
We will not be able to consult with Matthew in executive session to the extent you had any intention to.
Well, you can discuss it.
Yeah, I can, certainly, but I'm just saying, if you wanted to, and I don't know if we coordinated with,
He's prepared for a call later.
and frankly, you could engage him, and if you decide to reconsider that decision, you could undo it at any time, but this would allow you to get the benefit of his advice and recommendations in executive session.
Okay, I have a motion to move 4C to executive session. Is there a second? If not, we'll continue to talk.
I don't think you need a motion to take something to
Okay,
executive.
well, I'm gonna request that we take 4C to executive session.
I'll make a motion that we improve the engagement of Dewar Bryant Campbell as Construction Litigation Counsel in connection with the district's contract with Weber Cadagua Partners for construction of the wastewater treatment plant.
I'll second
Okay,
it.
wait, before you second that in his motion, I just wanna note that my motion failed due to the lack of a second. Okay? Now
Okay.
you have a motion by, Vice President Wilson, a second by Director Rose, is that correct? Okay. Any discussion on that motion? I see none. All in favor of it? Show of hands. Unanimous, all opposed, none. It passes. Okay.
I'd like to move item number 8 to 5,
Okay,
and then
before,
move 9 to 6.
okay, before we do that, Tony, tell me if we can go back to citizens' comment. We had someone come in late.
Yeah, that's within your
Okay.
discretion.
I'm gonna ask Joyce Baker to come up for citizens' comments. You have 3 minutes or longer.
Okay,
Put in-
thanks. I don't remember if, you look familiar to me. I don't remember if you were at the April meeting, when, I think it was, Mr. Haas and, Mr. Thomas that you brought up, I think it was you two, that brought up a recommendation to look at de-annexing Granada because of the residents in the neighborhood of Granada and Entrada are included in the MUD, and we're paying taxes for the MUD, although the MUD doesn't provide any services to us. And at that time, I asked the previous council if he could look into that and if the board would consider exploring that option and putting it on the next month's agenda. And then I followed up with Ms. Slot to see why it wasn't on the agenda, and I missed the last meeting. And she said, because it wasn't voted on. So I'm just bringing that up again to see if the board would consider that, because I think it's very unfair that we don't, the residents in Westlake, in that one little area that are part of the MUD, we don't have any services from the Trophy Club MUD. And I thought that was a great suggestion that, I know you guys are interested in getting all kinds of revenue from the businesses that are gonna go there, and I frankly care more about the residents that are there since I'm one of them. And so I would like you to, if you could look into that and maybe vote to put that on the agenda
Kevin,
for next week.
let me say
Okay,
something.
this is a citizen comment, so,
I understand, but let me say something. Joyce, through my own contacts at AWBD, there is, I have found a procedure in the Texas Water Code that might allow us to do something. Tony's very aware of it. I do intend to put it on our agenda for next month
Okay,
for him to
great.
come back and advise us on this process.
Okay, great. I searched through that code too, and I was like, I found a couple things that possibly, but I'm glad that you, that you made
Okay.
the effort to do that as
did
well.
that answer your question?
Yes, that would be wonderful. I really appreciate that. So can you do a motion to put it on the
No.
agenda? Because I
This
think
is a
that didn't
citizen's
happen.
comment, we can't,
Oh,
he's
okay.
not even supposed to talk to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but he did.
Okay.
And
I will
it sounds
request
like,
it for the next
Thank
it
meeting.
sounds
you.
like he's gonna
Okay.
put it on a future agenda. Okay?
Next week, next
Okay.
month?
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
Okay, what were you saying?
I'd like to make a request that we move item number 8 to number 5 and move item number 9 to number 6.
8. So move 8 and 9.
Yes.
That's fine. Does anyone else have any problem with that? Okay, so we'll address number 8. Agenda 8. Consider and take appropriate action regarding funding and construction of proposed 16-inch water transmission line from the district's ground storage tank to elevated tank located on T.W. King Road. I'm not gonna read A, B, and C, but that's number 8. Do you wanna say something, or Keith?
No,
would you-
let them begin.
Okay.
I'm Gil Barnett with CP&Y. Just wanted to review kind of the status. We did the hydraulic model, did the work on the model mostly in 2015, and we published the results in February of 2016. And one of the things that I'd point out is we looked at past usage, demand, water demand, and then projected that into the future. We looked at from 2010 to 2014 data, and then used that as a basis, and then looked at the available land that was going to be developed and whatnot for potential growth, and projected that usage forward. One thing we did, I think it was last meeting, we had more recent results from 2015 and 2016, and even up to May of 2017. And we showed that the water usage at this point has jumped up significantly. I don't have that data in my hands, but it was May of this year versus May of last year was close to double. Is that right?
Yeah.
So indeed, the construction has happened. There has been some growth, and there has been growth in demand. And so just as a basis, that kind of validates that demands are going up. There were several different proposals in the study recommended for future capacity increases. And the one we're talking about now is the 16-inch line from the water plant to the east storage tank. And that is one of the number one priorities, and it is needed for a couple of reasons. One is just capacity. Your demand is growing. You need the increased capacity. But also, back when we did the study, we already could tell that you were having issues operationally, where you can't fill the west tank and the east tank, the two elevated storage tanks. You can't fill them equally. The water wants to go to the west. It won't go to the east because your lines are too small, basically. And so this line corrects that situation and will allow you operationally to fill both tanks without having to go through some calisthenics and basically closing the west tank in order to fill the east tank. So we have reviewed this particular project a couple of times, I think, in these board meetings. And so just wanted to review that and place that as like right now the number one priority for capacity improvements for the system.
Does that affect volume too?
Yeah,
Pressure.
the reason your operational difficulties with those tanks is getting worse is because your demand's going up. And as your demand goes up, that gets worse and worse. So this will increase the capacity where you can get to the east side of your distribution system with better pressures and better flow and maintain that higher
When do we
pressure.
start breaking on required fire pressure at the meters?
Yeah, your fire flows will be better. They're not a problem right now. Your fire flows are still adequate, but in the future, without this improvement, your fire flows will not be adequate. With your future demand, the model did show a fire flow analysis, and without this improvement, the east side of your distribution system will not be adequate for fire flow.
Do you have an estimate when that would occur?
Well, the timing is not precise because it depends on, as I said in the report, the growth of demand. We kind of know where it's going to go in the end for future build out. It just depends on how quick the new developments are filled and how quick the population is increased. So as your demand, if your growth goes at a faster rate, of course you get to that higher demand quicker. And I think the data that we showed for the last year and a half, you've had significant growth.
What's the current pressure now, and when does it become problematic for fire service?
I can't give you a precise number.
I mean, just best guess estimates. It's education for me. I've heard concerns about that, but I don't have a point of reference.
Well, I think your pressure is at the highest elevations on the east side. You already have low pressure complaints. You already have issues where people know the pressure is a little bit low. That affects fire flow today. Not to say it's inadequate, but if you get, I don't know, certainly if you get 10, 15, 20% more growth, you probably will have a problem. But it's hard to quantify that exactly without doing a model output.
On the east side, we're gonna add at least 2 more commercial restaurants from what I think is in the plans. Then we have the Holiday Inn Express opening, I think, around 2030 or something like that.
I was about to say, I know you're not going there.
It's getting close. It's getting close. And then we have the additional houses that are being
make it
built.
happen.
So based on breadwinners, I mean, breadwinners is using a lot more than was projected.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
and I mean, in Gil's defense, it's hard for him to know exact numbers because the last 2 years have been really, really wet. We've had a lot of growth, but we've had real wet springs, and we haven't had that, 60 days over 100 degrees Texas summer. I think this year we will be hitting that mark if the weather trends like it is right now, and we'll see
Okay.
that demand go way up.
Based on the flows you're putting out on a weekly basis, I mean, it's a lot higher than last year.
Yeah.
And
we haven't had
a
the-
dry
we
season
haven't
versus
had
a
the
wet
wet
season
spring.
is a big difference.
So dry season could put us into a critical stage pretty
When you
fast.
start looking at pressure issues, we're talking below 25 PSI is. when we
Your
have to
minimum
start.
standard is 35 PSI,
Yeah.
and when you get below that into even 25, that's pretty significant.
You're looking at possible boil order notices.
You drop
Yeah,
below 20.
where are we now? What's the pressure now on that side?
Well, I mean, it depends on where you're at. I mean, if you're up there in the higher points in the mornings and everything, I mean, you're probably in the 40s.
Mike, if memory serves me right, in the charts that Gil had in his original report, there's a smaller pipe up there somewhere around the top of that hill than the others, and some of this might be because the pipe itself for a 40-foot stretch is not big enough.
Well, there are a couple of sections. In order to get your water from the water plant to the elevated tower, you have to go through an 8-inch line in a couple
I'm
of different
thinking about,
places.
in the schematic you had of all the piping in the ground, somewhere up there past that three-way stop sign, kind of around, I forget, Ross Court, around that area, it seems to me like there was smaller pipes going from A to B that constricted some flow, and I wonder if that had something to do with pressurization.
No, actually, down Indian Creek past the three-way stop, we've got our main lines are pretty big. We got 8 and 12s, or 10 and 12s.
Going down towards Harmony Park as
Yeah.
well?
The problem is coming from the pump station to that elevated right now. I mean, we've got 3 or 4 feeds going over there, but they're real small. I mean, they choke down to like 8s. I mean, I don't even think we've got a 10-inch line going over there.
So the lines we're contemplating replacing are 10 and 12 with a 16.
No, the 16 will actually run from the water plant all the way over to that elevated tank.
Yeah, this will
So
be a
it'll
new parallel line, kind of parallel to Indian Creek. Is that the right road? It'll go out close to 114. It'll be 16-inch until you get to the branches that go across 114, and at that point it goes to 18-inch. But you've got along the path, you've got two tie-ins that tie it back into your system, a 12-inch and a 14-inch.
And this is going around PD 30 because
Going around PD 30 and all the way up the service road.
What's your best guess if we could go full bore right away? How long would it take to fully have this thing installed and working?
If you could begin, it'd probably take you 6 months in design and another 8 months in construction.
How about the TCEQ approval? What
We would run that concurrently with design. We've already done a preliminary engineering report on that for TCEQ. I don't know if it was ever given to TCEQ, probably not. But it was already, you have a copy of it, and we could run that parallel with the design.
Shane, we've
So we're
had,
looking
Keaton,
at
did you have
year,
any
year
on
and a
the
half out.
construction?
Probably closer to a year and a half.
Is that about right? Maybe 8 up to 12 months for construction. So it's a
from-
year and a half.
So from the date the decision's made, 18 months to the time it's operational.
That would be barring any unforeseen
Yeah,
problems.
and that's obviously, you don't have a crystal ball, but just
Right.
what would be reasonable.
That would be
about-
reasonable.
Okay.
One caveat is the TxDOT right-of-way along 114 is pretty crowded in some areas. We have to see how that plays out. That could affect time. It also could affect cost.
we don't know that yet?
We don't know that. That would have to be looked into as in the first part of the design for the right-of-way.
Well, I would think that's fairly critical. If we get into that thing and find out it's a roadblock, how in the heck do we run that line?
Will you fit it in, or
We have talked with the TxDOT when we started this, and they've allowed us, or given us a letter that we could go in the right of way. But even the right of way still doesn't provide us with all the problems that might be because of the concentration, things we have to get. We won't know until we just get in there and try to start laying out how to work it through there.
Yeah, the electrical cables and gas stuff and all kinds of stuff in that right away.
Right, and we gotta work our way through that stuff. But they have allowed us to go ahead and use the right of way, so we know we have that, at least that commitment from them.
But that's part of engineering and design.
Yeah.
Right, so, okay. Well, I mean, I guess the second part of this is discussion on, the issuance of bonds and stuff that goes hand in hand, I guess.
Kevin, can I ask one more question before we get there? I'm interested in delays. Shane, I know you've been working with Tom, he's in the back of the room, on tree mitigation to get through the Methodist property. Where are we on that? Because I don't want that to delay this thing.
We need to perform the tree survey and then move forward with that.
What has prohibited us from already doing that? We've known that for quite some time.
It was tabled at last discussion, depending on moving forward with this project.
How long will that take?
Do we have an estimate on the tree survey?
No, I don't think it'd take maybe 30 days. Really honestly, probably a couple weeks once we engage them.
I think we need to move with that right away.
We did bring that to you, the board, last meeting, and it was decided by the board to be tabled.
I'd like to untable it.
I don't
We
think
had a
that-
cost in there for the tree survey and everything, and
Can we,
it was the board's decision to not expend the funds
we can't
at that point.
discuss it now because it's not on the agenda, can we?
Well,
I
we've
thought we
authorized,
had that on there.
we've authorized action related to this 16-inch water line project. So,
It's
We
part
can
of
bring it in possibly with
It's
D.
part of it.
what's that?
It's in that project.
So we could bring it in with D,
It says regarding necessity and benefits of the project, and then action.
where the other matters
Says action
related
regarding
thereto.
funding, construction, and proposed,
Yes.
as part of construction.
I mean, if Tony says we can, I'm cool.
47, I can find it.
I just want to make sure we can
Tony.
bring it in.
We're good on the tree mitigation, to include it in this,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get a cost and then,
Yeah.
so we can talk. take that.
$47.50, I believe.
Sounds right.
Well, there's quite a few of them out there, and some of them are pretty big.
and that's been being required by the town, correct? Yes?
I'm sorry.
It's being required by the town?
Correct.
While Mike's looking at that, I guess just a question, up until this point, my understanding is the board has not yet decided whether it desires to proceed with the project.
Okay, let's,
So,
I mean, that would be pretty much, as far as necessity. Can we take a motion on that to just, so we can, because there's no reason for the rest of it if we don't agree that that project is needed.
If you're not gonna go forward with the project, it doesn't make sense to do a tree survey.
Well, it doesn't make sense to talk about the bonds either.
Exactly.
You know, so I think if we can make a motion on the necessity, which is A,
Well,
8A.
I guess my understanding of the prior impasse was or issue was the funding. The board previously decided to go forward with a bond election, and that bond election failed. At the last meeting, the board did not approve going forward with certain actions required in connection with the issuance of revenue bonds. That's back on your agenda today. Your engineers have given you some additional information regarding the necessity of the project. My recommendation would be you discuss the funding issue too, and then once you understand the full picture, you can decide what, if any, actions to go forward with.
Okay, so we're gonna talk about, B, discussion and possible action regarding potential issuance of revenue bonds for funding of water transmission line improvements. Okay, who's gonna talk about that? Are you gonna talk about that, Shane?
So I can
I'm
talk
sorry.
about that.
Are you here today? or-
I was handing over to Tony.
Okay.
I apologize.
That's-
So, okay, so the cost of the projects is a 2.4 million.
Okay, let me just interrupt you there, I apologize, but we talked about 2.4, it went through the middle of, and PD 30 was paying a portion of it, correct?
The 2.4 is all
Going around
the
it?
way around.
Okay, got it.
So right now, we do have information from NewGen, and the best numbers that we have are only using current numbers. So we do not have the 2018 budget, do not have everything completely figured out going forward. But current numbers right now, according to NewGen, the rate increase would be $3.38 a month, or a little over $40 a year for a rate increase for funding this project.
$3.38 to the
Per connection.
per connection.
Correct.
That's a
And
month?
I have, yes, $3.38 a month. And I do have a handout here.
So what is that?
With-
Is that just an added fee, or is that
It would have to be
divided
blended
into
in with the water
volume,
rates.
or-
It would
Because-
be blended in. Chris is on vacation. This week I tried to get some additional information from him. So this is the current information that I have from NewGen.
The reason I'm asking, a person that does 60,000 a month, if you increase their water, they're gonna generate more than 333 a month than a person using 5,000.
Correct, and that rate goes up with the rate order.
So he took into account everybody's water usage and came up with that?
It
believe
sounds
so.
to me like what he's doing is just total cost divided by the number of your customers, then per month. And so if it was done in the form of an increase to your base monthly fee, it would be that amount. Obviously, any decisions regarding rates will be up to the board, and you'll decide whether to increase your base monthly or change one of your volumetric tiers. But this gives you an order of magnitude.
Yeah, essentially, once the rates come out, then everyone's gonna pay a number of cent to cover it.
And that was $3 and some odd cents, is that correct?
Yeah, per connection. It was $3 and how much? $3.38?
Yes,
Per month.
per month.
Per month, per connection. Is there more of these?
Got one for everybody.
Need one more, Nick.
I've got one already.
You have one already?
Yeah, there was just that second one.
Hold on,
The
not
first
that
two are the ones that.
Okay.
Kevin, I want to ask a question. I think D rolls into this as well. Look, we got to do this. We got to get this thing going. We got to pay for it. Are there, the only reason Bill's motion last month didn't pass is we all said, are there alternate ways to fund this thing? So somebody could at least discuss C. If there are not, then we need to move on.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, your funding options are to pursue another bond election or to go forward with revenue bonds.
Or how about we have the authority, do we not, to a bank loan for 3 years?
You will still need the approval of the Attorney General. If you issue revenue notes for a term less than 3 years, you won't have to get TCEQ approval. But when I refer to revenue bonds, that's essentially what a revenue note is, just a much shorter term. That would avoid having to go and secure TCEQ approval, but that also means you're going to have to pay off that amount of debt within a 3 year.
Do you have to have the Attorney General approve the less than 3 year bond, less than 3 year bank loan?
If it's true debt, the answer is yes. If it was subject to appropriation so that each year the board could decide whether or not to include it in its budget, that wouldn't require AG approval, but no bank would agree to that.
But Tony, wouldn't it take a significantly higher increase for the next 3 years in water rates to pay off $2.4 million in 3 years versus 20 years?
You're talking $900,000.
Absolutely. That's a lot of money to pay back over a 3 year term.
That wouldn't make any sense to even consider.
Let me consider. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
Okay, so the 338, again, what's the staff or board's thinking on, is that added on to the base rate? As Tony, you mentioned that, right?
So that's not on your agenda today in terms of taking final action, but in the future, you will have the discretion to determine whether or not to amend your base rate or to modify one of your volumetric tiers to fund that additional cost.
Okay, so right now on the table is, number one, is the line required, or we're gonna go forward with that? And then we have new gen information that it's gonna require $338 a month or $40 a year, guesstimate, ballpark number, to fund that revenue. Is that correct? Does everybody understand that? Okay.
And then Chris also does have in there how the board translates this impact into a final rate design will be up to the board.
Well, that's what we just talked
Right.
about as far, but that's not to be discussed tonight, as Tony mentioned. All we're gonna talk about, do we go forward and do we use a revenue bond, knowing what the numbers are gonna do to the water rate or base rate?
I'd like to make a motion.
Go ahead.
By way of background, we had this room full of 60-some-odd people who said, don't raise my water rates.
Okay.
There's, let me just,
Are you gonna make a
I'm gonna make a
motion or-
motion. Let me say, and I will then make the motion, please.
Okay, then you
Please.
do discussion,
Please.
okay?
While I don't like the fact that water rates are gonna be raised, there is no other way to do this that I can see. Therefore, I make a motion that we proceed with this project as quickly as possible, and that we start the paperwork to fund it with a what is it, Bill, 2.42? With a $2.42 million revenue bond to pay for it. That's my motion.
What about the tree survey?
I said to start the project.
Yeah, I'm gonna, well, let's
That
we'll
includes
come
the
back
tree
to the
survey.
tree survey. I have a recommendation for you. As I understand Director Thomas's motion, he would, yeah. I was trying to clarify it, so someone can take it.
Well, if I get a second, then I'll explain why I said what I said.
Okay, the motion dies.
No, I'm gonna give him a
Okay,
second.
you have a second?
Yeah,
Okay, Director Hayes, second, Director Thomas's motion.
I do not like doing this with a revenue bond. I see no other way to do it. Our voters have already voted down a GEO bond. We don't have time to put this back up in November again. This thing has got to get started. We're looking at an 18-month development cycle. We're looking at being in deep yogurt here pretty quick with the building going on in Trophy Club if we do not do this. That is why I said what I said.
Tony, do you have any comment?
Only that, really, the action before you today isn't approving the project. At some point, there'll be a contract back before you, you'll award a bid for the project and take those actions. The real decision for you today is whether to go forward with the application to TCEQ, so you can secure approval to go forward with the revenue bonds.
but the application TCQ contains a request for issuance of bonds, does it not?
That is the application.
Right.
You're seeking authorization to issue revenue bonds up to a certain par amount for purposes of funding this project, and TCEQ will review the technical and the financial feasibility of that.
Jim's motion about using revenue bonds to pay for the estimated cost of this project, that would be a necessary part of the application to TCEQ, would it not?
My interpretation of Director Thomas's motion, and he can obviously clarify if it's not correct, is that he is asking the board to approve Resolution 2017, and I assume we'd update the number to 0620, which would thereby authorize preparation and submittal of an application to TCEQ for authorization to issue revenue bonds.
Well said.
So you said what he said.
So do you think his motion said what you just clarified for us? Not quite?
Let's go with what Tony said.
That's up to Director Thomas.
Would you agree to amend what you said to what he said?
Absolutely.
Would you second that?
Yes, I would.
You present?
Since
He
you're
just
in
helped- he just
abstention.
helped-
Okay. Okay, so can you just explain one more time so Lori knows?
Yeah, Tony,
what-
can you repeat my motion?
Yes, I think Director Thomas, as clarified, just moved that the board adopt resolution number 2017-0620, authorizing
Add an A on it.
authorizing in preparation and submittal of an application to TCEQ for approval for the issuance of revenue bonds to fund this water transmission line project.
That's what I heard him say. Okay. Okay, you understand, Jim? and
I
Jim?
do. Oh, which Jim you talking?
Both of them, all I have to say is one.
Yeah, that's the motion.
Okay, does the board understand?
Yeah, I already agreed to
I
second.
have a- I
Okay,
have a
Director
question.
Rose.
I have a question. You said resolution. Is there, maybe it's not in the basic packet. I was gonna see, I didn't see anything that said particular about, oh, I got it. I'm with you. 2017-05-16?
Yeah, and I believe that we carried over the last resolution number, but since it's now June 20th, we would update the resolution number accordingly.
Okay. Because that resolution number is used in another motion, but we can work that when we get there.
Yeah, I
Another-
think that's why Lori suggested A.
Okay, I'm with you. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Any questions? Anyone? Okay, we'll call for a vote. All in favor? Show of hands. Okay. All opposed? None. It passes. Okay, so we can go on to 9?
Not yet.
Okay.
Tony, do we need a formal motion to start with the tree mitigation process?
I'm going
Part of
to,
this.
It says other matters.
in your last agenda, you specifically identified that survey, and to eliminate any questions, I'm going to recommend that that be on your next agenda.
Okay, even though D says other matters related thereto.
It does, and I'm not real familiar with your practice, but just as a general principle, if you were that specific on a prior agenda, best practices would be to be as specific on a future agenda.
Okay.
Does that mean we can't do anything on that
Well,
survey?
I think your engineers are going to commence all necessary actions to proceed with that project and application. So I suspect they'll do quite a bit of legwork in connection with that.
I think what he's saying is that because of all the work they have to do, if we postpone making a decision on the tree survey, then it shouldn't impact the duration of the project.
It, hopefully, it's a process, and I don't want to, I want to get to the town what the town requires as quickly as we can. I don't want that to cause any delays. You know, we need to do what we need to do by their ground rules and get it done.
You already know that, don't you, Mike? Yeah.
It's part.
It's laid out what the tree mitigation is.
I'm looking at, as it's written here, it says other matters related to, that tree mitigation is part of this $2.42 million action, so.
From a pure legal perspective, I'm comfortable with you in light of that agenda language because it's directly related to the project. As a practical matter, in the past, you provided specific notice of that. But the board's comfortable, I'm comfortable telling you, I have no legal concerns from an Open Meetings Act perspective that it's covered by your agenda.
If there's no objection, I'd like for Shane to proceed with that.
I think you need do you need a motion to expend that funds as it was before? Okay.
It would be a motion.
It's gonna be at White.
With half.
It's with half, and they provided a
There's a
contract cost.
There's a proposal from HAF to perform the tree mitigation survey for $47.50, I believe.
Yes.
So I would recommend the motion to be to approve the proposal from HAF Engineering and Associates and to perform the tree survey at a cost not to exceed $47.50.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Thomas to engage with Half and Associates not to exceed $47.50. Everyone understand that? Okay.
We need a second.
I'm gonna s- We got a second. What are you talking about? Okay, Director Rose, second. Director Thomas made the motion. Any further discussion? All in favor, show of hands. Okay, unanimous. All opposed? I see none passes. Okay, now we can move on to 9, correct?
That's correct.
Is that the one you want to move up?
That's the one.
Okay. Consider and take appropriate action regarding district capital improvement program for repair and replacement of infrastructure assets.
We have currently looked at the town's CIP program coming forward, and Mike and I have gotten together and looked at what our priorities are. Currently with the road work that is being done by the town, we feel that we have other lines that would take more priority over that. So with regards to the town's current infrastructure work, we're not recommending that we move forward with that. Looking at our next budget cycle, we are going to look at implementing our own CIP program. Currently, right now, probably our hot spot is Portland. We discussed that at our last meeting. The next
A hotspot is what?
Portland. So when we after our last meeting, we had a main line break in that area the next day. So that continues to be a bad spot.
Okay, now, you are recommending to us that we would be better off to do line replacement in streets other than the ones town's going to tear up and replace, which is we've always tried to coordinate, but if you're telling us it's better to go the other way, and is that what you're telling us?
That's correct.
Okay.
What's going to be, how much cost do we save by, if we were to go with them? How much cost are we avoiding?
I don't know.
Is there any way to quantify that?
I don't know if we can quantify that. You know, there's different lengths, different lines, there's different age, there's different materials. You know, is what I can say now is we've outlined where we think that our problem areas are, and as of right now, they're not coinciding with.
What kind of process is necessary for us to replace line? Do they typically run up in the yards or out in the middle of the street?
They're through our easements.
Usually they're up in the yards. If you guys
Usually
look
up in the
at your
yard?
packets,
So it's not a matter of jackhammering up the street then, right?
no, there will be some street crossings, which will be, you know, little saw cut street crossings. There will be some driveways that, you know, we'll have to cross. I'm probably sure there'll be landscaping and maybe some mailboxes.
Right.
If you guys will look at the handout, I got an email from Tignall and Perkins, and at this point right now, it pretty much says that even if we were going to move forward with this project, that we would be holding up the town's project. Have to go back and almost pause their project to work us into it now.
I'm not quite sure I understand that. You're saying the town can't go ahead with their street repair?
Everybody should have a copy of the email from Tom, so
I haven't found it yet.
I think what he's saying is that because we've delayed the decision so long,
Yes.
that even if we decided to go along and work with them, that in order for us to do the work they would have to pause their project to give us
Okay.
time to get in.
Gotcha.
yeah, go back and re-engineer.
Okay.
That's what Tom's email said. I don't know if that's true or not.
I'm assuming if he said it, it's true.
Yeah.
I trust Tom.
he's here. If you-
Well, I can speak to him in third person.
Rutledge. It's Tom
Yeah,
Rutledge.
Tom
Oh,
Rutledge.
Shelley Perkins.
So is it your recommendation, Mike, that your proposal in prioritizing line replacement will be presented formally to the board as a part of the 2018 budget?
Yes, the thing I would like to do, though, with that presentation is figure out how much capital expenditures we want to budget per year for that.
You're gonna have a 5-year outlook though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So are the ones in red the ones that you would anticipate would be 2018 projects? I'm on page
Yeah,
176.
Phoenix and Portland, and then you have Indian Creek and Harmony.
If you're looking at 176,
That's
that is
town.
the town's
That's the town.
outlay.
Okay.
Go down to the next page.
As the towns now, next year, I know they've got some Trophy Club Drive, Durango to Bobcat, which we have some new piping in there, Meadowbrook and Sundance Court. That may be something that, I mean, we do have some old AC lines, and so maybe some of that we might want to look at, maybe replacing some lines in there. But I would also like to, moving forward, get rid of some of our problem spots, some areas that I know we have main breaks on. You know, you asked me to bring this to you, it's some of our problem spots last month. Wednesday morning, I got a call from the street department, and we had a water main break at the corner of Trophy Club Drive and Carnoustie, which Carnoustie was one of my main areas to replace.
Lucky guess.
Yeah.
You went down there and sabotaged it, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so when you come back next month, you're gonna have a chart similar to the town with it. This year we need to do, next year, and the dollar amount. You know, guesstimate, obviously the dollar changes based on concrete and everything like that.
Okay.
Okay? Anything else to talk about on this?
I'm a little bit concerned about, I understand that some of our areas may have a priority and a need, but I'm also concerned about moving away from the historical practice of working with the town on these areas which we do construction. I'm not a huge fan of tearing up somebody's mailbox and the town doing it 1 year, and 3 years later we come along and tear up the same yard and the same mailbox just for the important part of putting in a water line that could have gone in prior to that. I have concerns about
In
that
past
action.
years, we used to do that, and then I think last year, we didn't find out until August or something. Is that correct?
I think it was around December.
No, it was sooner than that we found out what their capital improvement.
Oh, maybe.
It
maybe
was like August or September after we did the budget and we're through with it. So, but in the past, we were told, when you were on the council, remember Mike got up and said, these are a 5-year capital improvement, but the projects would never get done. Like those courts went on and on. Indian Creek went on and on. They were on there, so we shouldn't be able to budget money, and then the town doesn't do them that year, it pushes over, rolls over. We took some of the funds and did the roundabout, you know, the pipe movement on that. That was $246,000 that we had to reallocate. So if they're gonna do them, then we can, you know, budget the money and the money spent that year. But if it's gonna roll over, then we have money sitting there that we charge people taxes or, you know.
Water rates.
Yeah, so, anyway.
And we will.
I agree with you, though, that we should work and to minimize the cost, but we're kind of behind the curve on this one.
Well, based on the wording in the agenda on 6A, or 9, it used to be 9A, now it's 6A.
Still 9A.
It seems to me like we have the authority under this agenda to make a decision as to whether we are going to repair lines in conjunction with town street repairs or whether we're going to repair lines as recommended by the water superintendent. So that, in that regard, I want to make a motion that we, in connection with 9A, that we have the water superintendent present us with a budget for 2018, fiscal 2018, for line replacement as he sees the necessity rather than tying it to the town street repair.
I'll second it for discussion.
I don't think we need a motion for that because,
It's direction,
okay.
Correction.
but, I mean, you don't need a motion for direction, but just to make it, you know, he made a motion, I'll second it, so it gets done. Any discussion? I see none. We'll vote on 9A to give direction, correct me if I'm wrong, to Mike to present us at the next meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
2018 requirement of line repair, okay?
And associated cost.
And anywhere possible, if the town's working on those same areas, to put that in there for future years too.
I like your idea more than I like his, because I'm with you. I don't like going away from what the town is doing.
Right, so-
But he has specifically said,
Do you accept the way I read it? Since I made the second. I said to also include anywhere possible to work in the towns in future years.
That's fine.
Okay, he accepts my amended motion. Everyone understand what the motion is? Okay, all in favor, show of hands. Okay, all unanimous, all opposed, I see none, it passes. Okay, anything else on 9A, 9, or B, C, D, or E?
I'd like to move another item.
Just let's finish this one first.
Oh, I
Anything-
thought we were done with
Anything
it.
else on that, Shane?
No.
Okay. Okay, which other one you want to
I'd
move?
like to move 10 up. So,
Okay,
Class can get out of
anyone
here.
have any problem moving 10 up? Okay, consider and take appropriate action regarding the possible transfer of ownership of the district's fire station and fire equipment and long-term lease of the fire station land. Director Thomas?
Yep. Mr. President, I want to make a motion, and if that motion receives a second, I will explain in detail the reasons for the motion. I move that we direct our attorney to immediately start the process of developing an asset conveyance agreement with the town of Trophy Club whereby we transfer ownership of Trophy Club Mud One's fire station, all fire equipment, and all associated debt to the town of Trophy Club as quickly as possible, and definitely before our respective 2017-2018 budgets are finalized. I further propose that we direct our attorney to prepare an appropriate 99-year lease agreement whereby we lease the current property associated with the fire station itself to the town for an amount not to exceed $1 a year or the minimum legal requirement by the state of Texas for as long as a formal fire station remains on that property.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion
I'll
by
second that.
Director Thomas. Is there a second?
Yes, I second.
but-
Oh, I didn't hear you. Second by Director Hayes. Okay, discussion.
Then I'll make my comments.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Director Hayes, for the second. Let me now explain the reasons for my motion in detail. The time has finally come where Trophy Club Mud One needs to get completely out of the fire services business and allow the town of Trophy Club to take over those services 100%. To do so requires that the town of Trophy Club assumes ownership of the fire station and fire equipment and all associated debt. In January of 2016, with the signing of an automatic aid agreement between Trophy Club Mud One and the Westlake and Roanoke Fire Departments, Trophy Club fire equipment and now Trophy Club town personnel, our firefighters, are automatically dispatched to any fires in Westlake to include Grenada, Entrada, and Solana, as well as Roanoke, whether a fire tax is charged to property owners in Westlake or not. This action completes the following. Number one, Mud One would no longer be taxing residents and/or property owners living in Westlake to fund 50% of the salaries and benefits of employees of the town of Trophy Club, their fire chief and firemen. Number two, Mud One will be completely out of the fire services business, and by no longer having a fire tax in our 2017-2018 budget, our taxes, based on today's tax rates, could be reduced by as much as 7.445 cents, which, if enacted today, would represent a 58.5% reduction in Mud One's overall tax rates. Number three, all customers in the areas of Westlake known as Grenada, Entrada and Solana would receive this 58.5 reduction in Trophy Club Mud One taxes as well. Number 4, we would finally be completing one of the major recommendations made 3 years ago by the Town of Trophy Club's Blue Ribbon Panel Committee, that the fire chief not only report to one manager, but also prepare only one budget to be approved by one entity. Number 5, there would be no need for the fire chief to seek approval from Mud One for any repairs to the fire station and fire equipment, or for the purchase of any replacements of such, or any new equipment as it becomes needed. Number 6, depending on how the Town of Trophy Club is able to finance their cost associated with the transfer of these assets and debt, if by taxation, then for the first time, the homeowners within the Trophy Club pit area of our town will be able to write off any taxes associated with the fire department budget in the same manner as Mud One customers do today. Number 7, lastly, land is a commodity in Trophy Club and especially in Mud One. We don't have much of it. And I'm not willing to give away any land owned by Trophy Club Mud One, but I am more than willing to sign a 99-year minimum cost lease associated with the fire station property. As I said earlier, the time is now for the Mud One Board to take this action. Now that the fire department personnel are all 100% Town of Trophy Club employees, it is simply improper for Mud One to tax Westlake property owners to pay the salaries and benefits of the Town of Trophy Club employees. It will take work to accomplish this task in conjunction with the Town of Trophy Club, but working together we can make this happen, and we must make it happen before Mud One approves its 2017-2018 budget.
Okay.
And
My-
Roy, here's the write-up of the motion.
I agree with trying to work it out, but before we even spend a dime on attorney fees, I think we need to get feedback from the town if they have interest in doing this. Why go forward on something if the town doesn't have any interest in doing it? That's my thoughts.
I guess my only concern with it, I completely agree with Director Thomas in that we need to move it out from the mud. My only concern is the potential to be in the same position we are with the annex building, where we own the land, they own the building, and now we're bickering back and forth about they want to do something with the building. We're saying, well, you can't because it's on our land, so you can only use the building in the way that we say so. I'm for completely eliminating any of those conflicts. I can't envision a scenario where our town will not have a fire station. If it does, when we get to that point, we're so far out, I don't think the mud will exist anyway. Because we're talking, it's not even something that I can even envision. We're talking so far out. So personally, I don't see where the land is an issue. So I would be for just giving them the land as well.
Any, Director Rose?
I concur with Director Wilson on that, on the land. I struggle to find a reason that going forward, I need to control that land. And so in my mind, I think it needs to go with the fire department. When the building goes, I think the land needs to travel with it. We can have a discussion and then amend the motion if it looks like that would be acceptable. And as far as going forward, I believe that this issue was on the town agenda also. I'm not sure. I think that was last time, so I think they're also talking about it. So there's apparently some discussions going on somewhere. And overall, I'm in favor of the concept. There are at least one fine point that I know of that we'll need to address later on in the workup, and that is who owns the fire plugs and who pays for the water. And I've seen some stuff written in AWWA about how that can be handled, maintained on our side of the equation, yet they own the fire department and everything else, and we just take care of the fire plugs.
Bill, when you said fire plugs, you meant fire hydrants?
Fire hydrants, yeah.
They're called fire plug. Again, before we spend any money on Tony going forward, you directed him to start putting together something in your motion, did you not?
I did.
So wouldn't it be best to see if the town had interest. Why would we spend money before, if the town has no interest in it?
Kevin, if, I attended the town council meeting last Tuesday night, and there was a discussion of this. I was asked by Mayor Sanders to come up and address the council. They are waiting to see what, correct me if I say this wrong, guys. They're waiting to see what we do tonight. If this passes tonight, then it will go on their agenda, and they will then decide what
So
they want
do
to
you
do.
have a-
If we take no action, they are going to take no action.
Well, I'm
I
not
don't-
talking about taking no action. I'm just saying, before Tony starts running the meter, do we wait for the town? I mean, if we vote on this and it passes, then that should give direction on them, you know, knowing our intentions. But for Tony to start drafting paper or do research
Chip,
for the town,
Sorry. Kevin would address your concern if Jim's motion provided, subject to confirmation from the town that it's interesting going forward, then legal counsel is authorized to proceed.
exactly. Why start, you know, the motion when we haven't even heard back from them?
Perfectly willing to do that as long as this board understands. I will personally not vote for a mud budget that includes a fire tax where we're paying salary of town employees. I will not do that.
Okay, but that doesn't have anything to do with this motion. I mean, do you have any problem on adding what
If you
Tony
think,
just
if you
said?
think that lady was tough on us, she is gonna go crazy.
Don't, do you agree with what Tony, to add to your motion?
Yes.
Yes? Can
Yes.
you say that one more time, Tony?
We would modify the motion to provide that legal counsel won't commence any activities with respect to preparation of the agreement until we receive confirmation from the town that it desires to proceed with the proposed agreement and lease.
And that's fair, because we don't spend any attorney money until they do. But there is if you talk with Tony, there is a ton of work to put this together, not only on our side, but on their side. And a short time frame.
Who seconded the motion?
I did. I agree to
You
it.
agree to it?
I agree
Okay.
to it.
Any more discussion?
I have an amendment. I move to remove the second part of the motion, which addresses a 99-year lease, and that the land would go with the building.
Okay, is there a second to that
I'll
motion?
second that.
Got a second by Vice President Wilson of the motion made by Director Rose to remove the 99-year agreement. That's part of the original motion, so we'll vote on that amendment first. All in favor of that amendment, show of hands, to remove the land
Yeah.
from the agreement?
And land doesn't make any difference to me.
Okay.
99-year lease or give it to them, it's all about the same.
Okay. All opposed? Got myself, so it passes. Okay, now we're back to the original motion with the amended, to remove the 99-year agreement. Okay, all in favor of that motion, show of hands? Okay, passes unanimous. All opposed? None, that passes. Okay, so that's the direction to the town. They have a clear statement, and when we hear from that, Tony will go forward. Okay?
I do want to say that I don't feel obligated to extend this land proposal to the annex. That's yet to be decided in a separate issue.
Okay, anything else, or can we go back to 5?
I'd like to make one last one.
Sure, go ahead.
That we move 14 next. That we go into closed session and address those issues.
Why don't we do the financials, and because they aren't gonna take a lot of time. Do that?
Yeah.
And we still have to do the president and vice president. I'd rather get that done before we go into executive session. We're
Yeah,
done?
I just don't want to go into a long agenda item.
Okay.
I'd rather burn our mind
That's
on.
5 and 6. We still
Yeah.
have 7 left there, too. Okay, so we'll just go down from 10 to 11, okay? Does anyone have any problem on that? Okay. 11, consider and take appropriate action regarding the May 2017 combined financials and variance report. A, combined financials, B, variance report. Jim Hayes?
Yes, I've looked at the combined financials and the variance report, and I make a motion that they be accepted.
A second?
Okay, we have a motion from Director Hayes, a second by Director Thomas to approve the combined financials and the variance report May 2017. Is that correct, Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay. Everyone understand? Any discussion? I see none. All in favor? Do you have anything, Bill? Okay, all in favor? Passes. All opposed? None? It passes. Okay, 11, we just did 11. Okay, 12, consider and take appropriate action regarding formatting of meeting agendas.
This was,
Senor Corbett.
this will be a very quick item. I just, in connection with preparation of your agenda, it's, many entities write their agendas in a way where you have the flexibility to go into executive session regarding every agenda item, provided it's authorized under the Open Meetings Act. And so it was really just a question whether you would like in future agendas to see it tweaked in a way which allows the board, if a matter comes up, to give you the flexibility to go in executive session.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, I don't see no harm with it.
Me too.
Okay. We'll try to do that next time, and you guys can give us feedback based on how it goes.
Okay, you don't need any motion for that, that's just direction. So we'll move on to 13, General Manager Monthly Reports and Updates.
Just going through, skip to number 3, we do have the projected proposed rates for Fort Worth. Looks like the wholesale water rates are going to be going up 3.9%, so that's a pass-through that we'll be looking at the upcoming budget. We're working with CPNY on the new VFD pump and the wells.
Kevin, may I ask a question? Shane, have you stopped to look and just to see what that cost would be per connection at 3.9%?
We have not yet, no, but that will be considered when we're developing the budget. We're going to be meeting with Fort Worth concerning the north side 30-inch water main and the allotted capacity. There's been some changes in this project, so we will be looking to make some amendment changes with the current agreement. So we'll have more information on that after the meeting on Thursday. The wastewater permit plant renewal, we've received word back that the Executive Commission is recommending, I believe, four or five of the those asking for a consent hearing, and then they have not recommended some others. Is that?
Yeah, generally, in connection with renewal of an existing permit, generally there's not a right to a contested case hearing. The exception to that is if, because of a permittee's compliance history, then the commission has the right to refer a matter to contested case hearing. In this case, because of the district's compliance history, the executive director and the Office of Public Interest Counsel are recommending that the agency refer the application to SOA for a contested case hearing, and in connection with that, they've identified recommendations about which hearing requesters are affected, and that decision will be made in the beginning of July. But it's because of your compliance history.
As in the tree falling, hitting the sewer pipe?
Yes, sir.
That July hearing, does our attorney appear at that hearing?
I would recommend that you have representatives present. It's only, though, for purposes of answering questions. Generally, with respect to hearing requests, the commission will not allow public testimony, but representatives are generally present to answer any questions that may arise by the commissioners.
Is the current date still the
7th.
7th?
Anything else? Mr. Rose?
Just briefly, back on the Fort Worth water line and the recalculation. Kept looking at this, trying to figure out exactly what they were doing. And they move a capacity from 15.45 to 20.76 in that line. So I was trying to figure out how they got such a large variation in capacity. And then the question is, what happens to the current line? How old is it? And what's its lifespan? Because some of our capacity is carried in that old line.
Correct.
And the other point would then be, if we keep the payment and the percent the same, we would have 8.86 MGD per day in the new line.
Okay, so
I just
this
question.
north side too, this is what we funded with the SWIFT funding. These are Fort Worth upgrades. So Wendy with Fort Worth has come to us, like Shane said, we got a meeting this week. What Fort Worth has done, they went to 2 engineering firms. One engineering firm says you can get this much water through this pipe. The second engineering firm says you can get this much water through the pipe. They're taking the second engineer's recommendations.
I can add a
Oh,
little,
well,
I read
Gil's-
that, I looked into it, because I was
Yeah.
curious. And what it said was that the 15 MGD was based on need.
Yeah, I saw
You
that.
were assigned that based on what you needed. And after they looked, they could have gone with a 24-inch pipe or a 30. 24 didn't quite meet criteria, so they went with 30. But 30 has excess capacity beyond what you need. So they re-looked at it and said, well, the 30-inch, we can get the 20 MGD. So they took that remainder and kept it with Fort
So we're
Worth.
getting more capacity for the same dollar.
Right. So that
And-
pipe they're
and-
putting in, the pipe is a little bit bigger than it needs to be for what was needed.
Right.
So that extra capacity, which is about the 5 MGD,
They captured.
they just captured it.
Yeah, they
Okay,
captured.
so
Mike,
let me-
go ahead.
Sorry. Let me explain this a little bit further. So with that extra capacity, there's extra capacity in that line. Fort Worth come in there, and I don't remember what their original capacity was. Maybe it was 3 million or something. Well, Fort Worth just says, well, we want more capacity than that. I think they're up to 8 million.
Fort Worth
that line.
increased theirs?
Fort Worth increased theirs. So what that did across the board, it made everybody else's participation costs go down. So our $4.4 million SWIFT fund, I mean, it looks now, and we'll know more when we meet this next week with Wendy, but it looks like our SWIFT fund allocation now is down to about $3 million.
Wow.
So it looks like we're gonna save about $1 million on that project, hopefully. We were trying to get a meeting with her before the meeting, but she was in a vehicle accident, so we pushed it
Okay,
back
so
after.
didn't we already apply for the
This-
4 million?
Everything is gone.
So,
In fact, I
here-
think that
here's a
money's sitting
que-
in escrow.
So
That
we're
money
gonna,
is in escrow,
So
The
the
4 million.
4.6.
4.6.
so here's the kicker, back to the revenue. For the water line, the 2.4, can we not use?
No.
No.
That SWIFT funding is only for certain projects, and you can't
Just-
do
just
internal
asking.
projects.
Okay.
Well, the reason for my question here was, I'm going, what's Fort Worth gonna do with that water? Well, in the future, if the old line that we're using now, at some point it will wear out. Maybe 50 years downstream, I have no idea. But what are they gonna do with that line when that happens? Are they gonna turn around and sell us our extra water that we need, new capacity out of the new line, and charge us more than what we could have bought it for now? I mean, that's just the toss-up question that I had.
And like I said, we should have more information after our meeting once we get everything figured out, get everything trued up. And there's some other questions that we need to look at too, meter sizing and
But Shane,
some other issues.
that line, I thought was gonna be, the new line is gonna be large enough to deliver our needs irrespective of the other line.
Our problem right now is the current meter that we have. We can only take a certain amount through that meter, so we've actually had CP&Y giving us information on asking for an upsize meter. So far, they couldn't find a meter large enough, so what we're gonna be looking at is, Gil, tell me if I'm wrong on this, is the 2 10-inch meters paralleled in that will give us the capacity?
Yeah, right now your 21-inch line is reduced.
Can you come up to the microphone real quick?
Your 21-inch line coming in is reduced to 16 and then goes to the meter, and the meter's a 10-inch. The meter is rated for a maximum 5,500 gallons per minute. And your ultimate need is like 7,100 something gallons per minute. So you need one alternative is to put in a parallel meter. So, and to make the greatest use of your 21-inch line, put in a parallel 10-inch meter. If they'll do that, that would be the optimum choice.
When you say that it's not possible to get a,
Well, I don't know if it's not I mean, the meter that you use provided by the city of Fort Worth, in that meter family, the 10-inch is the biggest. I don't know what they would go, I didn't go find out what they would go to if they had to increase it, but they're limited because they go down to a 16-inch line anyway.
Is that something we pay for or something that they pay for?
The city, it's Fort Worth.
Fort Worth would pay
City
for
of Fort
that.
Worth pays for that.
So that is going to be something we're gonna be talking to Wendy about, and when we sign our Northside 2 water main
Gil, don't
agreement,
leave.
it's gonna be my suggestion that we have some verbiage in there for upsizing our meter once this project is done. Cause we're paying for the 10.3 million allocation, but we wanna be able to
can't get
take
it.
that if we're paying for it.
Absolutely, and to me, it would make sense for them to go forward with a meter that will allow us to do it.
Correct. And I think right now is the best time to do this because we're paying them a big chunk of money. for this
Just
upgrade.
looking ahead, based on what Bill said a minute ago, what if some point in time you take that 24-inch pipe and say, it is now breaking all over the place and we're gonna abandon it?
Which
What-
line?
The
21.
current one.
The 21.
Not the new one, the old one. If it just absolutely at some point in time you have to abandon it, what do you have to put on the end of this new one in order to get the water here?
We're talking about the line from 370, we're talking about the line from Taylor
377.
Tank to 377.
Right.
Okay, yeah, right,
There-
Bill,
we've-
you're right, you're right, you're
we've got
right.
two parallel lines going,
Right.
the old line and the new line that's going in.
Right.
We've got two lines going, the old line and the new line, and our old line, we've got 3.6, if I remember right, in it, was our capacity that we paid for, and we bought
0.6.
we bought 6.6 in the new line. And my concern was, as I've expressed, is what happens when the old line fails? Is Fort Worth gonna turn around and offer us opportunity to buy more capacity out of the new line at some future date at a price much greater than what we could do it if we just maintain the current contract and say, no, we're gonna pay we're gonna stick with our current agreement for dollar value, and we want what'd I say? I think it come out to 8.86, and we want 8.86 in the new line, MGD, based on dollar cost. I mean, I just raised that. I'm not saying that that's the right way to go.
It's a good point.
Yeah, and then,
And we'll be talking with Wendy about that. We'll get some costs from her.
Anything else? We got some more items on here.
No, that's all I had. Thanks.
No, for Shane.
The CSEP project has been complete and the final report has been sent in. So we're just waiting to hear back from TCEQ on that. And
Where
Yes,
are we
we
at on,
have.
where are we at on enforcement of water usage?
so with the shut off that is taken into effect, we actually had a report on a non-watering day today and verified that. So a red card was placed. I have spoken with the town manager, and one of the issues that's going to be addressed at the joint meeting is lining up there's a difference between our drought contingency plan, watering days, and the town's ordinance on watering. So we need to make sure that those get into alignment, especially when it comes to enforcement, that there's no difference between the two.
Shane, quick update on the VDP pump in well number 3.
Mike, can you go ahead and
In engineering still. We just had a meeting yesterday, I believe.
The pump is in engineering?
Yeah, well, the whole project is, there's gotta be a lot of electrical done to feed that new pump. We're gonna have to upgrade our current transformer, which I went to Encore about a year ago, before this was even put on our capital budget, to make sure we were gonna be able to do what we needed to do. So from Encore to the electricity coming in to, retrofit our existing can to hold the new 250 horsepower.
It's replacing a fixed speed, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
It's
Okay.
replacing a 150 horsepower pump with a 250.
And with our Wise Guys program of the the 500 that were sent out to the top 500 users that was agreed upon, we've had 47 customers sign up for the Wise Guys program.
Good. Against Southlake, that's a good percentage hit versus what they experienced their first year.
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Anybody have any other questions? Mike? Okay.
You mean on reports and updates?
Yes.
Yeah, I, down under finance update, I do want to talk about where we ended up last year and where we are this year as far as the budget is concerned. So let me pass these down and take one. This, I think they're printed on both sides, so you need to, but what I want to talk about is the Samsco page 1, identified by writing in 1 on it. When Samco came to us last month or the month before, I've forgotten which month it was, but column, the fourth column over is entitled Available for Debt Service, $1,192,533. And I think some of us, including me, were surprised to see that number because and part of his narrative was we wouldn't have to have a rate increase for a revenue bond, and that we had $1 million. And the point I want to make is we don't have $1 million sitting around waiting to apply it to a revenue bond. So what I wanted to talk to you about is I put in here what Samco had to say about it as he tried to explain why he was showing such a large amount of money available for a revenue bond. And you'll notice in his write-up he said it's to guide the district through a bond issuance program, and this includes determining that the district has the legal and financial wherewithal to support a revenue bond. Well, what I wanted to discuss with you is that we ended up 2016. Well, the point I want to make to you is we don't have that kind of money sitting around for a revenue bond. So I don't know if any of you ever looked at the 2016 year-end numbers after we made all the closing entries. But on page 4 is a summary of, and then I pulled this off the budget summary. The entire budget summary is available for all 4 departments: water, wastewater, board of directors, and admin. And so what I wanted to show you is that as we closed the year, we had revenue and income of $7,164,000, and we had expenditures of $7,798,000. So what happened to us last year? We had expenditures exceeding revenues by $663,000, which is a reduction in the commercial accounting. That would be called a net loss, but in fund accounting, it's a reduction in the fund. But it had to be paid out, so the cash in the fund took a hit. So what I want to then talk to you about is the 2017, we made a budget amendment on 4/12, and the original budget showed we had revenue of $9,545,000, and we had expenses of $9,531,000, so we had a $13,000 surplus going into the year. When they amended the budget on 4/12, they corrected the revenue and the expenses to $9,840,000. So the point I want, and in the course of doing that, they had Renee had to put a $245,000, I believe the number was, adjustment into the budget amendment because we had more expenses forecast for the remainder of the year as of April than we had in the original budget. So, and they were, let me see if I have, they were for the restroom out there was one of them. What was the other one, Renee?
Yeah, the LAS building
Yeah,
and campus waterline relocation.
Yeah, so she put one in there. What was the title of that sub-account that you added in there? It was prior year reserves. So she had to put in a 200 and some odd $1,000 prior year reserve, which means she had to go back and take another hit against the general fund. Now, the truth of the matter is that the way this will work is as we go through the summer and as we expect the revenue to exceed expenditures, that will reduce that 245, 295 down to probably zero. We hope. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that the Samco presentation was for legal purposes. It doesn't have anything to do with actual budgeting. So I want you all to understand, we don't have that $1,193,000 sitting around for revenue bonds. That's all I had.
So we can't plan a big Christmas party.
Okay, anything else on reports and updates? Lori, Stephen, Renee?
No, sir.
Okay. Bill? No? Okay. We'll move on to closed session. It is, let's see, 14. Pursuant to Section 551071 of the Texas Open Meetings Act, the board may consult with its attorney in closed session on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with Open Meetings Acts to seek advice of counsel on legal matters involving pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers. Tony, do I need to read A and B too, or?
You just need to identify them.
Okay, it's under A, contractor breach, performance and payment issues related to the district's contract with Weber Cadagua Partners for construction of water treatment plant improvements. B, settlement agreement relating to ratepayers' appeal of the decision of Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1, change orders pending before the Public Utility Commission of Texas. 15, Agenda 15, pursuant to Section 551.074 of the Texas Open Meetings Act, the board may in closed session deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or to hear a complaint or charge against an officer or employee. And we're going to talk about A, employment evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of the district's general manager, including consideration of any claims or charges relating thereto. It is now 8:38, and we will dismiss into executive session.
Are you doing it in here?
Excuse me?
In here?
In here. Is that okay?
Staying in here?
Yeah, we're going to stay in here, go into Shane's office. Where are we going? Shane's office?
Yeah, because we need to call.
Okay, okay, that's right. Okay, we'll go into Shane's office. 11:47, and we will come back to regular session.
This is gonna be 1 year, right?
And we're on 14 pursuant to, well, 14A, contractor breach performance and payment issues related to district contract with Weber Cadagua for construction of wastewater treatment plant. And then B, settlement agreement relating to taxpayers' appeal of the decision of Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 to change the rates pending before the Public Utility Commission of Texas. So I'll make a motion on 14A to approve district participation in mediation and, if necessary, arbitration proceedings with engineer and contractor regarding claims made by and against the contractor.
I'll second that.
Okay, I made the motion. Vice President Wilson seconded it. Do we have any further discussion on the matter?
Can you read that one more time for me?
I'll just give it to you. I'll read it again. District participation or mediation, and if necessary, arbitration proceedings with engineer and contractor regarding claims made by and against contractor.
And that's to authorize participation.
To authorize
Correct. To
participation.
approve district participation, I said. It started off approved district participation, okay. And Vice President Wilson seconded it?
Yep.
Okay, any discussion? I see none, all in favor, show of hands. Okay, it's unanimous.
Okay.
All opposed, none, okay.
On B, I make a motion to approve the settlement agreement to resolve the ratepayers' appeal for the Trophy Club 1 with one change on section 1.2, change the period from 3 years to 1 year.
I'll second. There's a motion made by Vice President Wilson, a second by myself. Any discussion? I see none, all in favor? Okay, we got Director Hayes, Thomas, Wilson, and myself, 4, and I take it you abstain?
I abstain.
Okay, and Director Rose abstains. It passes. Okay,
Item 15.
item 15. Employment evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of the district's general manager, including consideration of any claims or charges relating thereto. Do I have any motions?
I make a motion that we accept General Manager Shane Jeff's resignation effective immediately and appoint Mike McMahon as the acting general manager until a replacement general manager can be found.
I'll do a second on that. I got a motion by Vice President Wilson, a second by myself. Any discussion?
Question.
I have a question.
I don't know if that's in connection with that. Do you want to consider any adjustment of his compensation?
Sure.
Correct, and we also adjust the acting general manager's salary to reflect that of the existing general manager's salary while they're acting in the role as acting general manager.
I accept the change. Any further discussion? I see none, all in favor, show of hands. I got Director Rose, myself, Vice President Wilson, Director Thomas, and Director Hayes, 4. Opposed, I see none, we're moving on. Okay, we're back, regular session agenda. 16, consider and take appropriate action on matters deliberated in closed session. We just did that one. Consider and take appropriate action, is 17. Consider and take appropriate action.
You've done that.
We've done that too.
Sorry about that for repeating it.
We've also
Okay.
done 18.
Well,
Or
Director
B and
Rose
B.
wanted something on 18.
I want to take 18C and move it forward to the next
Okay,
meeting.
Let me just read it first. 18, personal matters. Consider and take appropriate action relating to the reassignment and duties of district employees. B, consider and take appropriate action relating to appointment, recruitment, or employment of district personnel. And C, consider and take appropriate action relating to amendment of district personnel policy manual to authorize employee performance bonuses.
I think he only wants to move C to the
I know,
next
that,
agenda
I
item.
just had to
Okay.
read it, though. Is that correct, Director?
Just move C forward to
Okay,
the
so
next
we're
meeting.
gonna, table 18 and move C only to the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, Laura, you have that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
so-
we've completed A and B.
Okay, so we're gonna go back. The only thing we have, let's do future agenda. Anything for future agenda?
I think we need to, I make a motion that we table items 5 and 6
Okay,
to the
wait.
next meeting.
19 is items for future agenda. Do we have anything?
Yes,
My notes indicate that the
The re-
board previously talked about possibly modifying its policy for appeals to the winter averaging.
Yeah.
To authorize the GM to consider those.
Okay,
We received a request from somebody in the audience for an agenda item regarding de-annexation.
correct.
Um,
And then we're gonna move 18C to a future agenda, and then
5 and 6.
Then I understand from Vice President Wilson, 5 and 6 is gonna be moved to the next agenda too.
And we need to do
And
7.
then we're gonna do 7. Okay, do you have that, Lori?
Yep.
Okay,
I have another item for the next agenda.
excuse me?
I have another item for the next agenda.
Okay, well, say it so she can,
The board is, Tony, let me get Tony's attention.
Tony,
Tony, the board has already directed attorney to look at, is there anything within the water code that allows us to consider any form of reorganization as it might affect the homeowners in Granada? There is a thing called special districts. I know you have some experience with it, so I'd like to have that on the agenda for the next meeting.
We
So-
already added it.
It was added already.
Tony already said that.
I'm sorry, missed it.
Okay, 7, consider and take appropriate action to elect the following officers of the Board of Directors. Rose and Wilson. Okay, I'll start with the president. Do we have any nominations for the president?
I'd like to nominate Kevin Carr to be president.
I would like to nominate Greg Wilson.
Okay, we have a nomination for myself and a nomination for Vice President Wilson. Any other nominations? Okay, we'll vote, you mind if I vote on myself or you? It doesn't matter to me. Okay, all in favor of myself being president, show of hands. Okay, got Director Hayes, Thomas, and myself. All opposed? I see Director Rose and Director Wilson. Okay, we'll carry it. Obviously, the majority, I'm the president, but we'll vote for you too in case it becomes a tie. Okay, all in favor of Vice President Wilson for president? Show of hands. You
Oh,
voted
wait a minute. For president, I thought you were voting
Okay.
for, excuse me,
president.
vice president.
For president, show of hands.
You called him
Can-
vice.
Can we get a
Director
mark on the
Wilson
tape
and
on that?
Director Rose, all opposed? Okay, got Director Hayes, Director Thompson, myself, so I guess I'm the president again. Okay, 2, Vice President.
I want to nominate Director Wilson as vice president of the board.
Okay, we have any other nominations? I see none, so all in favor of Vice President Wilson to continue Vice President Wilson, show of hands. It's unanimous, all opposed, I see none, and welcome to Vice President again. 3, Secretary Treasurer. Do I have any nominations for Secretary Treasurer?
I'd like to nominate Bill Rose.
Okay, got Bill Rose as Secretary Treasurer. Anyone else? No other nominations? Okay, all in favor of Director Rose becoming Secretary Treasurer, show of hands.
Can I
Okay.
abstain?
Well, you want to abstain or not? Okay, all opposed?
You are staying.
I would like to say at this point, I appreciate all the work that Jim Hayes has done, and I'm going to be leaning on you heavily this next year, my friend.
Okay, so we have, in the roles of president is myself, vice president is Vice President Wilson, and Secretary Treasurer is Secretary Treasurer Rose. Okay, last item is, we did future agenda, right? And we have set, what?
Did we need to do a motion?
We got to do a motion on the you two
What?
guys.
To appoint you and I to do recruitment
Yes.
for it.
We need to do that, Kevin.
Yeah, we need to,
Which item would that be under?
It will
oh,
probably fall
yeah.
under,
it was take, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. It was under 15.
no, 18B.
18.
18B.
No, it was under the one that was in executive session. 50. It was,
18B.
18B?
It was 18B.
18B.
Yeah,
okay,
18B.
I returned to 18B.
Kevin, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint the president and vice president of the board to form a committee of 2 to look into the possibilities of obtaining a new general manager.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Thomas to consider and take, to approve Vice President Wilson and myself to go forward with a recruitment or employment of a new general manager. Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, you would, yeah.
Is that okay with you, Secretary Treasurer?
Kind of yes, but you're not authorized to make the final decision on it. You're going to
No,
bring it back to
to
the board.
recruit.
To recruit.
Okay.
Is that okay, Secretary Rose?
What are you gonna do,
Okay.
pull our budget?
Okay. It's already getting.
Yeah, he's already getting
Man.
pushy, man. My goodness.
Okay,
Talk
there's a
about power
motion.
trip.
There's a motion and a
Was there a second?
Was there a second?
Yeah, I'll second it. Okay, just to keep going.
I think you made, who made the
I
motion?
just, Jim Thomas. did.
Oh, okay.
I made the motion.
Okay, Jim Thomas made the motion, I made the second, Lori, okay?
That's a good catch.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, all opposed, none, it passes.
I make a motion that we
No,
adjourn.
no,
I mean,
we got 20, set future meeting date. Regular meeting on July 18th at 6:30 PM. Joint meeting, July 25th, 2017. I don't see a time, so, wasn't it 7:15? Okay, it's 7:15. Anyone have any problem?
Hold on one second.
Workshop.
What? Well, budget workshop, Stephen, you're gonna, and the staff is gonna come up with a workshop date? Go through the budget in
Yes,
July?
it's in August.
I'd like to,
August?
It's about the same time that we had
Okay,
it
well,
last
just
year.
come up with a date so we know ahead.
if we do the 25th, can we push that back to like 7:30 or 8 if we do the 25th? July,
7:30 maybe?
7:30?
Yeah, I don't wanna go any later than 7:30, okay. It's at 7:30 now. Anyone have any problem with 7:30 on the 25th? I see none, okay.
I think that's their regular meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
Well,
think they're gonna
if-
wanna go that late.
Well,
Just
my thought was
notify
maybe
Mike.
they could space us in the middle.
yeah, notify the, town, that's what we, Greg preferred, 7:30. We just went along with it. Okay. Okay, the motion to adjourn?
Second.
I'll second the
Okay,
third.
we're adjourning at 12 o'clock,
I'm in
exactly.
favor.
What?
I'm in favor of adjourning.
Well, we aren't gonna,
You guys get a day of rest. I have
Only an
to
hour over.
not bad.
I have the budget,